Hello, we are students at Carnegie Mellon in Scenic Fabrication and Installation, and today we are going to be doing a podcast where we discuss some articles from the News from the Real World blog for David Bovers. All right, I'm Claire Farouk.
I'm Annie.
I'm Vanessa.
I'm Julian.
I'm Simone.
Nice. All right, so today we're going to start with Julian.
Okay, so the first article we're going to be talking about is a visual guide to Vantablack, the darkest substance ever made. And it's about a black coating that reflects only 0.036% of light. So it's very, very black. Any thoughts?
I think this is so cool. Like when I first saw this article, I thought that it was really cool, but the article does say that it's only for experimental use. So you couldn't really use it in your art or anything, but hopefully in the future, that'd be something that we're moving towards, which I think could really change the art scene or like any scene that it's involved in, really.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, and it's also a little bit creepy in the way that it's like it doesn't even like catch shadows because it just absorbs all of that kind of light. So it definitely would be really interesting to see how artists use something so like nothing-ish.
Yeah. I think it would be kind of unsettling if I saw that on stage and like found out that there was something actually there that was like painted with Vantablack. I would be like, oh my god. Yeah. So also there's like on the article there's a bunch of videos about it being used and they're trippy.
It's really like just an optical illusion.
Yeah. Probably people for magic.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, anything that like has illusion in it, like theater or in magic, I think it can definitely advance a lot of the tricks or a lot of the illusions that people are trying to go for simply by painting something with this Vantablack.
And also like I feel like in order for the optical illusion aspect to work, it doesn't have to be this black. Like I'm sure that they will, even if it's never like this dark of black they developed for like artistic purposes potentially, there could be a black coating that is black enough to have the same effect.
Cool idea.
Does it say anything in the article about how it's captured on camera at all? Like, so I'd be interested if like what we're seeing on there on the article is what it looks like in person, or if that just has to do with taking a picture of it.
It saying anything about it looking significantly different on camera than in person.
Yeah, I'm guessing that if it like turns out so well on camera that it probably has like maybe the same or like even a better effect in real life, which is cool.
It's so creepy though.
Yeah,
like
it's so weird.
And like there's like a picture where it has like a molded face, right? And then a face that's covered in Vantablack, and it literally looks like they like cut it out of the picture.
It doesn't have like any depth to it.
Did you ever read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? In the second or third book, there's a stunt ship that's painted so black you can't see where it ends and where it starts.
That's wild.
Wow.
And that's all I think about with this.
It's gonna be real.
That's cool.
I want to paint a car with that.
Oh god.
I think actually in the Q&A there are people asking about painting their car Vantablack, and makers of Vantablack are like,
scary.
no,
Probably not.
That sounds dangerous.
Yeah, that sounds like that would end in many car accidents.
Yeah, to like see that car and just be like, what has happened to my brain, as opposed to what is wrong with that car.
Yeah, that's wild. All right, cool.
Moving on,
the next article that we are talking about is called ISOtunes Pro Noise Reducing Bluetooth Earbuds. So the article talks about a new product that is wireless earbuds that can be used in like a scene shop and stuff because they are rated to take away the noise levels of like a shop and that kind of machinery. And they got a 4.5 out of 5 stars.
It's wild. It's very impressive.
when I first saw this article, I think it's like really cool how we have the technology to like take out some noises and then get others. It kind of sounds dangerous as well. Like in a scene shop, you always should be aware of your surroundings. And like, yes, we do wear ear protection to lessen the effect that our ears, well, that the sound in the shop has on our ears, but we still like can hear what's going on around us, which is good because like say someone calls heads or like someone
just needs your attention.
Yeah, someone needs your attention quickly. These, I'm not sure.
It talks about that in the article.
Yeah.
Well, and another thing that's dangerous about this is like, we use earplugs and stuff, but obviously the earplugs aren't bringing any new noise in. But with this, it's taking out the noise that you kind of need to be aware of and replacing it with music, which is great, but also maybe not the best for a scene shop where there's saws.
Yeah, like even if you can kind of, if someone is being really loud, like if you can hear that, your headspace isn't just like you're like listening to the music, like you're not going to be paying attention to like the little noises that you hear in the background.
Yeah. I wonder if they can make this technology possible to where you like can't hear like saw noises, but you can hear voices.
Whoa!
Like when I'm working in the shop, I want to hear the saw noises.
Yeah.
Because I know how the saw is supposed to sound. And
That's
it's
another
not
thing.
supposed to.
Oh, that's
Like
true.
I want to be able to hear if the table saw is about to kick back behind me, and you can hear when a table saw is about to kick back. I like one of the ways that I realize a bandsaw blade is dull is I can hear that the blade's dull. Like I want to be hearing what all of my tools sound like.
Yeah.
So I want to dull the tool noise so it's not like roar. But mostly like the things that I really want to be cutting out almost all the way are like pneumatic guns and stuff, like the big pows, but like the sort of dull roar of a saw. I want to hear at least a bit.
I feel like it might be more helpful for artists or artisans with like their own personal shop.
That's
like,
true.
Because like my dad always works in his shop with like the radio cranked up so damn loud.
Yeah.
So like it's added noise that almost isn't helpful because it's probably busting his ears up even more. So it's probably helpful in a place where there aren't a bunch of people and like they're your own tools, so you have more time to like take care of them. You know what state they're in, so you don't kind of have to listen to them in a certain extent. And also like you can feel the kickback on your own tools when you know how they work. So there's like that sort of thing is taken care of.
And definitely if you're the ones with your like you can feel it all. So if you're the only one operating tool.
Yeah.
Or with this, if you like can just play the music in one ear.
That's true. Yeah, that would be good, probably. But I mean, also like not all scene shops have our speakers, but we have some jams.
Most scene shops I've been to, at the very least, someo's brought in a radio.
Yeah, because like it gets boring if you're not jamming out.
What I find interesting is that for some reason that's different. Like when you really think about it, why would it be different for there to be music in the room as a whole versus music in your headphones? Like you're listening to the music.
I think it's a very different thing.
No, it's totally different, but why?
It's a social thing.
This is all you hear, and if it's like up there, then there's the whole environment as opposed to just that.
It's less isolated.
It's like if someone's yelling in your ear. That's all you hear.
I mean, like if you're walking down the sidewalk, like I don't want to be bothered by people. I'll put in earphones without like any noise, just because like it's a signal too that like I'm in my own world. Like don't bother me.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Very cool.
Interesting headphones.
I know your birthday present.
How many people? 11 comments. That's a lot of people talking about it.
This is the top. I've commented on this.
Wow.
Alrighty, so our next article we will be talking about CMU's very own Greek Sing, and this article was written by Abby Simmons. And so what Greek Sing is here at CMU is that all of the sororities and a majority of the sororities and fraternities put on a 13-minute musical. They cut this music, they rehearse this music, they do choreography, they make sets, and then they also, there's a philanthropic side where they raise money for Camp Kesem, which is a camp where children go to have fun, children whose parents have cancer, and they go to this camp just to keep their mind off of that. And so this is like a big event in the Greek community. They have set a goal to raise over $150,000 over the next 2 years, and I think this year they actually raised over the amount that they wanted to for the year. So I think it's something really cool that the Greek community is getting involved in like theater and like just like all aspects of it. It's like kind of like a one-act play, but put on by people who like a majority don't know anything about theater and then are just trying to
they
do
don't know
it.
anything.
Oh, well, majority.
Yeah, I
majority.
went,
or at least don't know about producing theater.
Yeah, I went and saw it last year. I didn't get a chance to see it this year, and it was super fun because drama is such like a small part of what the Carnegie Mellon world is like. So it was definitely nice seeing a lot of them kind of try to a very small scale of what we do, which it was.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And there's also, I don't know how typical this was, but there was some that didn't just do like Disney kind of shows or like an actual show. They like made up their own that was more humorous and whatnot.
Yeah, a lot of people write their own. Yeah, and they like make their own sets. I was involved this year with like just helping backstage or like helping put on the sets. And something crazy to me was they only get 1 minute to put
it's insane. Yeah.
the whole set on stage, and I don't understand it because that's just dangerous to me. Like,
I remember like everyone had their thing and they all just run as fast as they can.
Well, what happens basically is during the first number, you just stage it where the scenery is being brought in behind them as they sing the first number, and then you have so little time to get your set back off stage that during the last number, everyone's downstage doing the thing while the scenery's just getting moved away behind
it's literally being taken away. I think it's so funny, and it's just like funny. That like is just one aspect that just makes it like whatever. We're gonna take the scene the scenery down as we're doing it. It's just it's a lot of fun.
Well, and I think it's so interesting how they all the Greek people sorry how the Greek community they create solutions for these problems because I remember I was talking to a brother of Siga who's a dramaturg in our school, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm on the run crew, and I was like, oh cool, what do you do? And he was like, oh, I hold a flat, and I was like, you hold a flat? And I was like, doesn't it hold itself? And then he was like, no, because we got to get it off real fast. And I was like, all right, well,
it's scary.
It's scary. Zip tie all of our scenery to milk crates.
Good.
So it'll stand.
That's nice.
But also can
we
be
literally had people standing, holding the flats as the show was going on, and then they would carry them off.
What kind of budget do they have for this project? Do they try to do it just for a fasting, or is it also to keep the budget down?
It depends on the org, I think.
Yeah.
I think every org decides its own Greek sing budget and how much they want to spend.
They obviously want to spend as little as possible, but also make it a good set, because you also get judged on that. So
very cool.
Yeah, so fun thing that these people who don't majority don't know about theater trying to put on the show for a good cause. So fun stuff.
Fun. Cool. So the next article that we're going to be discussing is entitled "Few People Can Name 5 Female Artists. Can you?" And this is on PBS NewsHour. So this article is basically about how female artists or visual artists are extremely underrepresented in the world of arts, and especially in arts history, because it's getting a tiny bit better now, as all that is, but it's still nowhere near where it should be. And then there's the article has some statistics in it, for example, it says pieces by women artists often make up only 3 to 5% of permanent collections in the US and Europe, which is insane because that is a ridiculously small amount. That's ridiculous. So it's I remember when I saw this article first, I was like, oh yeah, I could name 5 female artists. I go to art school. And then I was like,
as soon as you read the title, I was like, oh, I want to do it in my head, and I'm struggling after this first two.
The first,
I also had the same, I was like, oh, I should be able to, and I remember, I can think of all of these specific art, the one who she does the this thing, or she does it
but their names, that's
but I couldn't necessarily remember.
And you would think art, just this very artsy profession, you would think that more women would get
especially
would get recognized. But I found it really interesting that the article said that a lot of these women don't get recognized because they weren't allowed into art school, or they weren't allowed to paint line figures, which is really interesting because I think the article also says that a majority of art is naked women, and I think that is so crazy that they weren't allowed to paint them figures themselves.
So until around Mary Cassatt, it was extremely rare because how it worked was apprenticeships.
Mm-hmm.
You'd go and you'd live with the artist and you'd
Mm-hmm.
learn from the artist to be an artist yourself. And you couldn't because you were an unmarried woman going to live with a man.
Yeah.
So it was very rare. Like there is one who I'm forgetting her name, but her father was an artist. So she could do it because she already lived with her father.
Yeah.
But like that's where, like I don't find it that surprising that so few exhibits are full of women artists unless they're like focused on modern art because they just weren't because they couldn't before.
And I think part of the reason, sort of going off that, why there might be so little cultural awareness of female artists is because when people try to name artists, they're almost always naming like Renaissance artists and whatnot. People can't really name modern artists in general.
Yeah.
So I think it's possible that if we put more arts education into what is more recently happening and currently happening in the arts, and that would give more opportunities to talk about more women because there are more women in the arts now than there were during the Renaissance.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting when, like, you look at visual art that, like, in elementary school and like the younger things, it's like normally the girls are the ones that have a bigger interest in it, and they're the ones that, like, I know when I was in elementary school, I did like the extended art program or whatever, and it was me and like 20 other girls, like no boys in the class were interested in it. So it's always so crazy that it just switches.
I think there's a lot of industries where like doing it as a hobby is considered a feminine thing, but like once you get into the industry, like cooking is like for women, but then chefs are mostly men. Like there becomes this split where once you actually become like good at it, all of a sudden it's all dudes now.
That's for teaching too. Early childhood education is mostly women, and then when you get to professors are mostly men.
That's so interesting. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Man. Okay, cool. All right, so our next article.
So the next one is about a British-Iranian composer who wrote an opera called ID Please, about people who aren't citizens in the U.S. who live here totally legally. They have citizenship in other countries, they live here, and it's about how like going back or staying where you're from is complicated, particularly now with the Muslim ban and all the travel bans, and how the composer herself had problems because she has both a British citizenship and an Iranian citizenship and was told not to get a US citizenship. And she didn't know if she could come back for her show. She could because of her British citizenship, but none of her family could. So there's the conflict in her own life that is reflected in the opera, somewhat coincidentally, because that's when this event occurred, but also it comes from her own experience of being the citizen from somewhere else living here.
I think one of the most interesting things that was said in the article, I think it was a direct quote from her, is that when she wrote it, it was sort of like this dystopian thing, and then by the time it was being performed, it was just about the actual situation, which I think is really telling.
I think it would have been so crazy being a part of that like rehearsal and show process on that show, because like you start with this script and then as the world around you like becomes part of the show, seeing how that
she did say that she made it darker after Trump was president, and after this stuff started happening, like it got darker and more serious.
Yeah.
Sort of a show becoming more relevant than you ever wanted it to.
Yeah, that's not what you like. It's when,
I think it's because this article, and I've read a couple others about this, like these instances and about these, like these other like people from other places coming here and like just their experience with how the world is now, well, how the U.S. is now, and I think that's really cool. How theater can give like these people an outlet. And that's definitely crazy. Like it's like I would never like have heard about this story if it weren't for like the play that she like wrote, you know, like in this article. And so I think that's really cool. I'm just trying to look on the bright side. But yeah, that's crazy that it became real life. But it's cool that she's getting that story out there.
Yeah, people are seeing it.
Exactly, because I think many people will see this play and like realize, oh, this is actually happening, and like their eyes will be open to it, because this is not something that like many of us like U.S. citizens experience really, or know people that are experiencing. So theater is great in that like it helps you better understand how other people are living.
The show is particularly good for that, I think, because it says at the end how different people who saw it thought it was about a different sort of travel ban that's happening right now. So it's her story, but it's also everyone's story.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so our next article,
It's which is
there's that one, yeah.
So this one is called Invisible Disability in Theater, Why I May Not Want to Tell You I Have a Disability, and it is written by a man with Tourette's syndrome and obsessive-compulsive disorder, and he's talking about his experience of because of the fact that he can hide having those things, why he often doesn't want to tell people because of the way they respond, and how he feels like he shouldn't have to be hiding it. It shouldn't be a thing that needs to be a secret. I actually wanted to introduce this article because I have a movement disorder that I usually don't tell people about in theater, just because like I've had people tell me things like once they find out about it, like, oh well, you should never do rigging then. And it's kind of like, well, actually I can, and I don't want to be having this argument with you.
Can you read that? There's a quote in it that I thought was really great about like trusting, like can you read that? I really love that.
The best accommodation you can give me is trust. Trust me that I know my limits and my responsibilities, including everything, and know that my first line of defense against discrimination is you. So sort of the idea of like, he knows when he can do his own job, he knows when it's going to get away, he knows his disability better than you know it. So I think sort of like the reaction that I have with that guy, and like other people have reacted similar, is I'll tell them sort of the face value of what I have, and they don't realize that like, even though it might sound like you have all these assumptions like at face value, like, oh well, you shouldn't be driving, you shouldn't be this, you shouldn't be that, but it's like, look, I've had it my whole life, and I know what it is, and I know what it does, and I know how to deal with it, and all of those things that you think are wrong, and you've known about this for what, a minute? So how about trust that I know how to live my life?
Yeah, and I think, I mean, the hardest thing about this is when you do tell people is, I don't think anyone would maliciously try to, so everyone always has the best intentions, and if they're asking you questions about it, they want to be able to help you and make sure that you're not pushing yourself too far, or make sure that something isn't going to go wrong, and it's like I'm sympathetic towards that, because they're trying to do what they can when it's like, you don't necessarily want the attention, and also it might not be better.
Yeah, I think you are both like right. I think what this article is probably trying to get at is that like, yes, that's a thing that people do, and they're like just trying to help, but we need to start instilling this idea that to these people, to everyone, that like people with disabilities, you should like know their own limits, and like even though like it's coming from a place of like care and like that it's not your place to tell them what they can and can't do.
And also there's a huge difference between someone saying to me like, oh wait, so then does that get in the way when you weld? Versus, oh, you probably shouldn't be welding then.
Right.
Those are two completely different statements. The first one I can just be like, yeah, no, actually it doesn't. Here's why it doesn't. And the second one, now you've sort of put me in a place where I have to like prove myself to you.
So maybe this is like opening up that idea.
I think part of like the issue with this is like, not always are people going to be verbal about how they're not going to give you more responsibilities. Like it's just going to be instilled in their head. Now they're like, oh, I shouldn't have Julian do that because of this. I should just have this person do it instead. And you don't really notice it, and they don't even notice it because they're like, oh yeah, I'm just being considerate. But in reality, like you should be open about who's comfortable doing this and stuff like that. So
I just find it interesting how like those things suddenly just change.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you've been doing this job for God knows how long, and then you let someone know something, and then all of a sudden you can't do it.
Right.
And it's like, it's such a thing that people do that goes even beyond like disabilities that could cause problems for actual people, but like someone even gets tired or stressed out and like takes a break once, and all of a sudden it gets instilled in people's minds that like they can't do this, and that like it's easier when you're just tired or stressed to like then prove again that you can do this, but it just shows how ingrained in people that even something like as harmless as that becomes such a problem for no reason.
Yeah, I have a very odd disability. It's called Irlen syndrome, and I went to a talk that the university had recently about like talking to your employer and what rights do you have as someone with a disability, and like what you should do like going into summer internships. And they said like you should right off the bat tell them like what you have and how it's best for them. And like I was like, I don't know, I was almost put off by that, because it's like it's so true that like people make the assumptions and they like have that in their head, so it's like, do you really want to? And maybe not right now, but maybe at some point in the future, who knows?
I personally don't tell people because there is nothing about it that they need to know. It's never going to get in the way, it's never going to be a problem, and because of the fact I am pretty good at hiding it, you're never going to notice it.
Right. And
the thing is that there are times where I am actively hiding it, and there's times like I could just say like, hey, by the way, if my hands do a weird thing, it's because they do. But I don't do that, I just hide it.
But here's where like this talk was really interesting, because should for some reason it get in the way of things, the company does not know, so legally they have nothing that they, like it's all on your fault. You can't put any of the blame on the company for not giving you something or anything. So like legally and like liability wise, it could become a problem. Well, and like that's a whole nother thing where it's like beyond the interpersonal, it's like the legal stuff too.
I still feel like it goes back to like what like you as a person with a disability like feels that you can handle, because if you do need something to help you, or you do think that it is a danger, then you probably would say something. But if you think that it's like not possible, like not possibly gonna affect your work, then you can like not say something. And it really is just like, I think, all up to the person, and like that could help them or hurt them, but that's like their decision.
And also I like don't even call mine a disability.
Yeah, that word I
don't have a disability, I have a movement disorder. Like it's not I don't call it disability because it doesn't get in the way, and it's not
that word is I understand.
Alright, so cool.
Next, we are talking about Ars Nova's brilliant career. So this is I just want to get the phrase right. It's a non-profit off-Broadway theater, and
they produce a lot of like
they have
theater that goes out and like does good.
They kind of have been the like almost startup for like new theater and new creators and artists. The big one that they talk a lot about is Great Comet of 1812 that they have helped with. What I found most interesting about this was that they aren't looking for the like show-stopping, all the glam stuff. They're more into the kind of odd theater that's out there and the unconventional.
That's really cool. I think like nowadays, like just like learning more and more about the business, it's a business, you know, so a lot of theaters like have like try to put on shows that they know will make money, or like things like that. And I think it's cool that this theater is like really sticking to their guns on like, we're going to produce new works that might not be good, but we're gonna take the chance that we're gonna find something that's a diamond in the rough, and it's gonna be awesome.
And also based on the article, it doesn't even seem like they really care if they find a diamond in the rough. It's kind of like they just want to like be a space for artists to try out the things they want to try out and figure out who they are as artists and what they're doing. And they don't care as much about, is the product gonna be not necessarily good, because I don't think they have the same definition of good as a lot of people, in the sense that they don't care if it's like
profitable
or lots of people like it.
It's really cool.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that's very valued in the theater community nowadays because a lot of theater is becoming more and more commercial. Like you can see just like looking at Broadway shows, how many shows are based on movies and not on like people's like original ideas. So it's really valuable to have, especially like an off-Broadway theater, something that's so close to Broadway, creating like experimental theater and trying new things. And like when they do work out, that's awesome. Like Great Comet, for example, is super duper successful. So yeah, I think that's something that really should be, like obviously not everything has to be experimental, but it's really nice to see that people are still creating like original art. All right, so now we're going to talk about
Diversity for Dummies on HowlRound.com by Mr. Ralph B. Pena. So this article really just talks about how he says that I think it's fair to say that the theater community is committed to the ideals of diversity. This guide will focus on implementation, which can be trickier. So he talks about how in each aspect of our organizations, how we can implement diversity. So like in our audience and our outreach to audiences and in our production teams and on our stages, how we can just enforce this a diverse community. And so he goes into a lot about that stuff, and I think it's really interesting the way he talks about a lot of it. It kind of goes towards more of the side of we need to hire ethnic communities more than like we need to be open to hiring these people, like which I'm sure he has the best intentions, but that's just a little something I noticed. And but I did like in his audience outreach, he said that a lot of theaters are like not willing to put on shows that involve diverse casts or involve a diverse story because their audience is not diverse and won't come and see these. And he's like, that's a problem because we need to like start getting a more diverse audience too, so we just need to change our outreach. And I thought that was an interesting problem that a lot of theaters face today.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting how he goes beyond the castings. I feel like a lot of times with diversity articles, it's all about the casting because it's a role versus like who are they going to play and whatnot. And it's really cool seeing that. I mean, you know, I think there's also a decent amount about like the production team, but like the audience isn't something that you really think of too much, that you might be in a certain location, but what people can you draw in from there?
Yeah.
So the idea of, is the demographic of the people working at your theater consistent with the overall demographics of the area where your theater is? And not, is it consistent with the demographics of your audience, or is it consistent at the demographics like this little pocket? Like, is it actually, are you actually representing all the people in the area where you are?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is something that definitely I've been talking to a lot of people about at Carnegie Mellon. We like lack diversity, at least in the acting musical theater program.
The incoming class, though, has some very diverse people. Which I think is very cool.
We're moving forward.
Yeah. Also, like, the design and production world isn't incredibly diverse either.
No,
so I would say it's less
like, how many Asian actors has CMU turned out? Like,
and I think the article presents a good point on how like if we're not getting Asian actors, where are we outreaching? Like a lot of people come from Florida, a lot of people come from New Jersey, like a lot of people come from Texas, where probably that like Asian communities aren't as big as other places. I don't know.
And I think it kind of
like the place where I went to high school is like 50% Asian.
Oh, cool.
So, like,
okay. Yeah.
I think it's
our
really.
Our theater department had a fair number of Asian people. It was half or something. Like.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes down the line that like, well, what if we started getting those audiences into seeing more theater? Because I don't necessarily think that demographic would have as much of like the exposure to it. So if like we started there, then like the numbers could also fluctuate in this kind of stuff too.
Also, the other thing, like, it's one thing to like say like, oh, we need to like CMU should let in more Asian actors, but then are there roles for Asian actors in the industry? Not enough.
No.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like we kind of have to do all of the things at once. Because if we do any one of them, it's not going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bummer, and it's just frustrating to see it like happening in your own school, because you're like, oh yeah, that's like the world is like that, but we're so great.
We're part of the world.
But like Amy
are
said,
the real
like, but like Amy said, like we do have a diverse incoming class, and we like the diversity community committee is starting to pop up, and I think like a campus, like a university, is a good place to start these things and to initiate a lot of this stuff. So that's good.
Because especially like we're going to be the next generation of like working theater professionals.
Exactly.
So
yeah,
cool. Are we boring you?
No, I just started yawning as soon as my article.
35 minutes.
Okay, cool. So
This is my article.
this article is called "Disrobing the Foreigner at a Minnesota High School." So this is on artsintegrity.org, and it is written by Howard Sherman. So basically this article is about at this high school in Minnesota, the New Prague High School, they were putting on a production of The Foreigner, which is a play, and at the end of the play there's people that come out dressed in KKK robes, and someone took a Snapchat of it and captioned it, "I think you're gonna want to come to the spring play ... So it took like one of the final moments of the play out of context, and it like blew up all over the school.
The KKK part is like written in from the play, right?
Yes. Yeah. And it's like and it's like the show's like about racism and stuff. So it's like tasteful. It's not like they're making fun of anything. So though it is a little bit question marky about putting high school students in KKK robes, but you know, whatever. The point is, this blew up. The parents were outraged, and the show was canceled, and everyone was, well, the actors were sad. But yeah, so this kind of, we've seen a lot of articles kind of of this nature of things being censored in high school plays, which I generally agree with, and I think I agree with this one too. I think that's it's fine it's different on Broadway when it's professional actors and whatnot, but I'm not sure about high school.
I have a question. Did any of you guys do Sound of Music at all in high school?
Yes.
Did they say anything about the swastikas?
Oh, I don't remember.
Okay, because I remember when
I saw it. I saw it in my high school.
When a local high school did it near me, they didn't use swastikas at all in it, and I just think that's an interesting parallel to look at.
Yeah. I agree with Claire. I think like obviously we might all agree that like theater is a place where we tell these stories of like, and sometimes these hard stories of history to get the word out there and to help people see what people have gone through in the past. But there's definitely a level to where like that kind of like you need to weigh the pros and cons of that, like especially in like a high school with this stuff. Like it's important maybe for them to read this play or like see this play, but to do it themselves, that can be like, just like this was taken out of context, those things can happen in like high school where like not everyone is willing to be like open or like understand the type of message that they're trying to present, and the importance of like just respecting that.
Yeah, I think at any level you're going to get people that take stuff out of context and don't respect it and don't understand it. So I don't think that it matters that they're in high school. I think that the only time that it matters where like you might decide whether or not it's worth it to put on is like, does it teach anything? Like, do you need to put on the show where all the women are secretaries and like being called slurs, or as opposed to like all the articles that kept popping up about schools doing ragtime and like how they wanted to censor that, but like that made a statement about race that was something to like get us to think about that's relevant to us now. That like that kind of show is like, yeah, maybe the high schoolers are gonna laugh at it and like think it's silly and not take it seriously, but like it's the theater's job to like do that. They should make
you
think about it, but like if even if it was put on at like the professional level and the high schoolers went to see it, they'd probably be reacting the same way. And like so maybe it's the drama teacher's job to like talk about the show while they're working on it, but I don't think that you should just not do it.
Well, there's definitely like in high school that's just like more like common, like to they might like try to teach that message, but it could like, I think a lot of times that message like gets walked over, like forgotten because of these people like making fun of it and stuff. And whereas in the real world, like there's less of that, like there's more of a balance. But I mean, maybe not, you know, like you make a good point.
Like also no one ever has like a problem with high schools doing Grease.
Yeah.
But I mean like Grease has a lot of questionable messages in it through the whole thing.
There are some very tame versions of Grease that I've seen in schools too, where
but
they
like
take
people
out,
do,
like,
but people just do Grease in high schools.
Yeah,
Yes.
yes.
I think it's interesting like what shows are kind of just considered like standard shows to do in a high school, and then what shows people have a problem with, and how sometimes they aren't really that different. It's just the things that you're used to people doing in high schools versus the things that you're not.
Yeah.
Although I don't think this is one of those cases.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
This
not
is
familiar
clearly
with
different.
the show.
Yeah,
I don't know if anyone else
There's a
is.
lot of issues with just taking things out of context and then freaking out.
Yeah.
Because like there was the article that was up a couple weeks ago where somebody freaked out because the title said mulatto in it, and like in the show it was about tackling that word, and the guy who wrote it was like, he described himself that way because like if you go back to its root definition, like he was, and like, but people just saw the word and freaked out, and it's like you can't, that I think is why people are like PC culture is bad, because if we don't bother to like actually think about the context of these things, then like we're just blowing up for no reason.
Yeah.
And I have one more thing. Why was someone in the audience taking Snapchats?
Exactly.
Don't have your phone on you.
Like I think
that's a whole nother thing.
part of
course,
the, like, I
but-
think part of the problem is that, because my understanding based on the article is that it was a cast member who took that photo during rehearsal and posted it, and so there's kind of this whole problem of like in theory, looking back on it, the director probably should have had a conversation with the cast about like the show, like don't like be taking photos of people, don't be posting it, like think about sort of like the way it would be received. But also the person who's directing that, presumably the teacher, isn't used to having grown up at a time when you can just Snapchat anything immediately. And so kind of having to deal with sort of coaching high school students through working on a show like this, being a high school student in modern times, not really knowing everything that entails. It's a really interesting dilemma.
All right, so now we're on our last article.
So this last one is about the Seattle Opera, which is closing their scene shop for at least 2 years. And the issue is that it's causing a lot of drama because the numbers aren't lining up. The people who are coming from the shop are talking about how it made money, at least when they left it was making money, and like there hasn't been enough time for it to be losing that much money. And then the people higher up in management are claiming that it's been losing money for a while and that getting rid of it will save a lot of money, which then the people working at the shop turn around and say, yes, it'll save money, but not nearly as much as you think. And they're just worried about losing the scene shop and losing their community of workers, not only because they won't have their jobs, but also because they might move elsewhere. So if they were to reopen in 2 years, they wouldn't have the same staff and the same knowledge that they had when they were open now.
That's interesting to me that they're gonna close it for like 2 years. Is it just like a test run of like? I don't understand. Because like the workers are right. If you close it for 2 years, they're gonna,
I can't be without
they're gonna
a job
go
for 2
off.
years.
Yeah, they're gonna go off and find new jobs, and then the scene shop won't make any money because they won't have anyone to run it when it comes back. So that's really interesting. And also it's really interesting to me that like management and the people working in the scene shop are so like
Disagree about the
like they like are arguing about the numbers, which like in a well-run organization should be clear.
Like it's a number, like there shouldn't be much to it.
So
what
that's
I'm
interesting.
wondering is, because my guess in terms of the fact they have different numbers is that they are counting different things as like, maybe one of them is saying this line item is part of scene shop costs, and the other one is saying like, no, that line item isn't scene shop cost, that show specific cost, like it would exist either way. Or like this thing is money that's coming in because of the scene shop, or like, no, this is coming in because of our scenery stock. We still have that even if the scene shop's gone. So that's not really, like, my guess is that it's not about, like, they disagree how much money has been spent on what and how much money is coming in from what, but they disagree what of that spending will disappear with the scene shop and what of that income will disappear with the scene shop.
Because they did say that the shop supports itself with outside projects, and the people who are saying the shop is losing money are the opera people. So they might not be thinking about the external costs because they're worried about their company in and of itself. So while the scene shop is technically a part of it, they might be considering those outside jobs as not really a part of it.
I mean, I feel like because part of the problem is, like, if it were that they were closing the scene shop but not turning the scene shop into storage, then theoretically someone else could then take over that scene shop and, like, start running sort of a commercial scene shop with all of the potential workers that now are needing jobs there.
Right.
But I don't think that can happen based on their plans.
Yeah, they said they're moving all their stored sets and scenery into the building, so nobody can use the building.
Yeah.
Maybe
Sad.
they're closing it for 2 years to see what money they actually do save and lose.
But I feel like you have to just figure out those numbers before you can't close a scene shop for 2 years as a test run, because everyone's gonna people who work there can't be like, okay, I'll just sit around for 2 years
maybe
and
I'll
see
get
if
a
I
job
get my
in
job.
2 years.
I feel like a year might be more realistic because you could find like a smaller thing for a year might be difficult, but not as difficult as 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, but the thing is, I'd imagine maybe some of, like, the carpenters and whatnot who are going to be working other gigs in the area would stay around. But, like, whoever was running your scene shop can probably find another job and will.
Yeah, well, I'm interested to see what happens to the scene shop.
Maybe we'll be doing an article about this next year.
Maybe.
Tune in next time
Or maybe
to see us
2
talk
years
about
from
what
now.
happened.
Yeah. All right, so that concludes our podcast. Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye, Bowie.
Bye.